The Chicago Bulls offseason is not slowing down anytime soon, and we got more candidates for the head coaching position coming up. We're going to talk about how Jerry Stackhouse's name has emerged, and also want to address why Jason Kidd is probably not a good fit for this job, because a lot of you guys are asking why. We're going to go in a little bit more detail on that. Plus, we're going to look at the best draft scenarios. We've got 3 different draft scenarios for the Chicago Bulls to look at that I'm going to cover on today's episode. We're talking about all that, plus the rise of Cameron Carr and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. We have a goal of getting to 50,000 subscribers. We are a little under 20,000 away from that goal, which is a hefty goal, but why aim low, right? That's the goal that we have here. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Due to us posting every single day, we may pop up in your algorithm, but you may not actually be subscribed. So just check it, hit that subscribe button. With that said, well, in exchange for that, I'll be delivering the best and most consistent Bulls coverage anywhere that you can find it, whether it's podcasts or on the YouTube side. As a matter of fact, if you're listening to the podcast version, just go over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, help us grow. If you're watching on YouTube, head over to the podcast side on Apple or Spotify and leave a review there, since you can't leave one on YouTube anyway. There you go with that one. With that said, let's get into the content here, man. Jerry Stackhouse has a name that has popped up over the last 24 hours in regards to the Chicago Bulls, and a player and a coach that could, interview for the head coaching role. Jerry Stackhouse, of course, as most people would know, is a former NBA and all-star player there who instantly would probably command some locker room respect, right? You can't overlook that. He served as basically the defensive coordinator for the Golden State Warriors, right? He's the primary defensive strategist when it comes down to that one. And because of his years working under Steve Kerr and working with the Golden State Warriors, he would theoretically bring over some of what he learned from that organization and working under Steve Kerr. Now, I say presumably, not to diss Jerry Stackhouse at all, but just because it doesn't always work that way. Like, we've seen coaches be under really good staffs before and then not necessarily have that same level of success, whether it's with players or anything else, that they had in being an assistant, right? Many people will remember, I could just go to an example here in Chicago, like Jim Boylen was well respected by players before he took over as the head coach, and the relationship between the players and him completely deteriorated. Now, overall, Jim Boylen just wasn't a good coach. I think your level of how good you are of a coach definitely plays into that as well. And I don't want to overlook that factor of it at all. If Jerry Stackhouse is good, that culture may bring over his own culture. But even when you look at like Luke Walton, what he did with the Golden State Warriors before are we saying that maybe just don't hire an assistant is that what we're gathering here? Just don't hire assistants from Golden State? But the Bulls need the identity, they need the accountability, they need player development, and theoretically Jerry Stackhouse would bring some of that. But I do want to market this on the official record. Jerry Stackhouse was once a head coach in college and did not have success. All those things that he had as a former player and all that, it just didn't work out for him, in being the head coach of Vanderbilt, right? And so you look at it over the course of time in Vanderbilt, he had no NCAA tournament appearances, no NIT success, no conference championships, and that automatically led to him being, fired after 5 seasons. And he got fired in 2024. So, success doesn't always translate. But at the same time, some coaches are just better suited for the NBA, and sometimes that first coaching stop doesn't work out for somebody. They learn from it and they become better coaches, and that could happen there, right? I think overall, like Jerry Stackhouse will bring some of the similar things we're looking for. I think you would still want to hire a really good offensive mind. Bryson Graham has talked about wanting a coach that can coach both sides of the ball. So there you go in regards to that one. But, you look at it last season, say what you will about the Golden State Warriors. They finished with the 7th best defense. And so if you're looking at what he has done well, he's done it at a really high level. That defensive background that he brings is not going to be ignored. As his history of what he did as a head coach shouldn't be ignored, but his successes shouldn't be ignored either, right? And so hearing Jerry Stackhouse's name being brought up in this head coaching search, I feel like the Bulls are casting a very wide net, as they should, and they should interview a lot of candidates. Right now, the question that people will ask too is that any of these candidates, if they don't get the head coaching role, could they turn into assistants for whoever we hire as the head coach? And that's a possibility. It doesn't typically happen the same way that happens in football, right? Like in football, you'll see somebody interview, for example, an offensive coordinator role. It'll go to somebody else. And then one of the guys you interview as offensive coordinator may become your QB coach or something like that, right? Like we've seen that happen before in football. It doesn't always happen the same way because coaching structures are very different in the NBA. But Jerry Stackhouse is an interesting name. And I won't act like he's not a name that doesn't pique my interest a little bit. Just got to weigh everything. And, we won't sit in the interviews. We won't get to hear what the coach's pitch is and their idea for systematically how they're going to use players. It's up to who brings the best pitch, right? And that's what we'll see what comes down to. But this Bulls head coaching search conversation continues to just get names added to it. And I think that's good. That's good. That's what you want to see, right? When the team is trying to reset their identity and truly build a culture that we've been lacking for so long, that's what you want to do, right? And there are, like I said, some concerns about Jerry Stackhouse, but, being a former player gets you respect. Being a good assistant gets you the room, but you have to find somebody who's built and ready to actually lead a team. And that's what you get down to. Now, with that, I said I also want to talk about some of the names that are left off this list. Fans keep bringing up Jason Kidd. And here's the thing that I want to talk about with Jason Kidd. The reason why Jason Kidd may not be a good fit for the Bulls isn't whether, I think he's done a really good job. You look at what he did early with Giannis, what he did with Cooper Flagg, development over that time period. I think that Jason Kidd does have a decent history being a developmental coach. I think that, right? And that's what the Bulls team needs. And I don't think, from X's and O's, people have brought up, things that the mistakes that he's made in the past. I'm not going to talk about that on this show because at the end of the day, that doesn't matter in this case, right? And I mean, it should matter for the Bulls. Character is going to matter for the Bulls. What I'm talking about in this case is simply just the basketball side of things, right? And for Jason Kidd, somebody who has had success as a coach and has developed over the course of his stops in other places, he has done those things. You can't take that away from him no matter how you feel about him as a coach or a person. He's had really good success developing people in Milwaukee and in Dallas. He has a barely below 500 record as a head coach, 49.6% there. He's had 6 seasons of coaching above 500 records. His first year in Brooklyn, they won 44 games. His first year in Milwaukee, they went 41-41. His third season in Milwaukee, they went 42-40, right? So you have that part. Then he went 23-22. He was fired before the season ended. His first season in Dallas, 52-30 was his record. Then 38-44, then 15-32, 39-43, then last year 26-56 was his record. But I think when it comes down to it, I don't know if he's the fit culturally. And what I mean by that is this. Jason Kidd is somebody that every step that he's had in both Brooklyn, Milwaukee, and Dallas, all those spots, he's done power grabs. And with Bryson Graham trying to build a franchise and a team and a culture here where it's collaborative, I don't know if somebody who tries to go for the power grabs as often as Jason Kidd has shown that he's willing to do. I mean, part of the reason he's out in Dallas is that he wanted front office say, right? And so, before we kind of knew who was going to be hired as the president, I did talk about Jason Kidd saying, well, maybe Jason Kidd, somebody can come in, can get that GM role. You can give him his front office role and the head coach, pay him a little bit more. But now that Bryson Graham is actually here in the building and seeing what Bryson Graham has already done with his front office hires, I don't know if somebody like Jason Kidd that has had the history of power grabs as he has would get to that point. That's just my personal opinion on it. That's what it comes down to. I think he's already brought the front office and built that in a collaborative nature. I don't know if he wants to change that. I do think Rajon Rondo not really being considered is more surprising, though, right? Like Rajon Rondo, a guy who is a former player as well, a really good X's and O's mind, right? A fan favorite because of his basketball mind. Nothing else, no narratives, no nothing. And I'm a little bit more surprised that Rajon Rondo didn't pop up on the Bulls list here, right? And, that's just the reality of it. Like, I was surprised by Chris Quinn. Like, not everybody is going to pop up for everybody else. And for all we know, maybe Rajon Rondo isn't interested in the job as well. He could, for all we know, Bryson Graham could have reached out for an interview. Maybe it was turned down. Maybe Rajon Rondo feels confident he's going to get another job that's available out there that he covets more than the Chicago Bulls job. So I don't know the behind the scenes in that. It is weird to me that we didn't hear his name, but Sam Cassell's name didn't get mentioned as well. Even though I think it's popped up in a rumor after that. But overall, I'll say this: I want Bryson Graham to go out and get his guy. Regardless, I've said this with players. I'm going to say this with coaches. It's not the job of the front office to get the coach that fans want the most. It's the job of the front office to get the coach that is going to make the most sense for the direction of this team. And that's what they have to do. And we'll see if he's able to, if hopefully Bryson Graham is able to do that his first go around and we get the right coach in the building. With that said, let's move on. Let's get into the NBA draft, which everybody's, always excited to talk about is the NBA draft. Haize Schuster over on Sports Illustrated had an amazing article where he talked about 3 dream scenarios for the Chicago Bulls in the first round. I've taken that and I've put my own spin on it, right? So I felt like it was a great idea, so I want to talk about that. The first one, the unexpected slide. Right now, again, credit to Haize Schuster for coming up with this concept, putting my own swing on it. The unexpected slide, right? And I think that with the conversation that's going around here, it's 2 players that if they both slide to number 4 and number 15 would actually also work hugely for the Chicago Bulls. At number 4, the best slide candidate is Darren Peterson. Now, I don't know how realistic it is going to happen. I've said it before. I think there is a lot of talk and narrative around the potential of Darren Peterson slipping. I think mainly because the conversation around the top 4 is pretty much gone somewhere. But I'll also say this, the medicals, the personality, the sitting out games, and the fact that it seems like Caleb Wilson really turned some heads in the draft combine. Do I think there's a world in which AJ DeBonsta and maybe Darren Peterson and Cam Boozer go number 2 overall? Yeah. We actually got a report yesterday that Cam Boozer, that some mocks or some people are expecting Cam Boozer to be taken 2nd overall. So I do think that that's a world. Now, would he make it past number 3? That's the question here. Him making it out of the top 2 wouldn't hugely surprise me, depending on what happens in any trades that happen. So I want to be clear there. Darren Peterson falling to 3 wouldn't surprise me. Darren Peterson getting to 4, that would surprise me, right? And I look at Darren Peterson as this. I feel like a lot of now kind of the conversation is turned around Darren Peterson. I think Darren Peterson has the scoring upside to be maybe at some point in his prime lead the league in scoring. And I also think that there have been some now false narratives around Darren Peterson that he isn't a defensive player. He actually takes a lot of pride on the defensive side of the ball. Now, is he going to be a lockdown defender? I don't know. But I will say this about Darren Peterson is that players that usually can score as effortlessly as what Darren Peterson could do don't give the level of effort that Darren Peterson consistently gives on the defensive side of the ball. That's somebody I'd be willing to invest in. So if for some reason Darren Peterson makes it past the Memphis Grizzlies at number 3, I think the Bulls would have to at least consider taking him because of the upside that's there. Darren Peterson has some of the biggest upside in this draft as a whole. And so because of that, definitely, if he were to slide at number 4, if AJ, Darren, and Cam all went, if AJ, Cam, and Caleb Wilson all went, and Darren Peterson's the guy left there at number 4, I've seen people say, I'll take Darius a cuff, whichever way you pronounce it, before I take Darren Peterson. I think you guys are crazy because of the effort that Darren Peterson gives on the defensive side of the ball. Now, again, the medicals, parts of that, so let me not say crazy, but I'd be willing to bet on that. But at the same time, I understand people like, hey, you get this wrong at 4. We already saw how that could go and change your franchise, but I would take Darren Peterson. Another player that if they slide to 15, and it's crazy to say this because I don't think coming into this it would have been considered a slide, but Morez Johnson. I think you seriously have to consider Morez Johnson there. The way that his measurables came in, the effort that he gives on both sides of the ball, not the most creative offensive player, but I think now with the way that the draft combine has went for him, you have to take a serious consideration of Morez Johnson there at number 15. So I think what you would get if your slide picks are Darren Peterson and Morez Johnson, you were getting 2 guys that are going to give effort on both sides of the ball. They instantly come in and add so much credibility and upside for the Bulls on the defensive side of the ball that you just can't overlook that. So those are the 2 guys. When you say players that could slide for the Chicago Bulls, the unexpected slide, Darren Peterson, Morez Johnson, strong rebounder, physical, showed some shooting upside to Morez Johnson as well. I think that this will give the Chicago Bulls a franchise guard and a front court centerpiece. And that's what you can walk away from with this one. I don't think that it's going to happen, but for Darren, but again, that is the slide play, right? Now, dream scenario number 2, the trade up, right? And in this one, I actually have the same 2 people as Haize Schuster does in his article. Not trading up for number 4, staying at number 4, you're drafting Caleb Wilson, right? Caleb Wilson, Cam Boozer at number 4, fine. If you can trade up and move up to number 11 from number 15, no matter what that takes, if that takes your 15th and your second round pick, your number 38 pick, I'm not mad about going out there and getting Braden Burries, right? I think at that point, you have solidified your wing completely. You have Braden Burries who can play the 2. You have Caleb Wilson that plays the 4. You have Move Modest to the 3. And you now have offense, defense balance in your first 4 spots. Now, that would lead you to have to find your starting caliber center in free agency, but I don't hate it because you'll also probably be giving up that 38th overall pick, right? And Braden Burries is somebody that has so much upside, both as a scorer and as a defender. I know he's a little bit small for a typical 2, because you have Josh Giddey, I think his size at 6'4", 6'5" is perfectly fine. The wingspan's there. I think Caleb Wilson brings you dependability on the defensive side of the ball, switchability. And if you have Caleb Wilson and Braden Burries, 2 players that can probably guard 3 to 4 positions at the next level, that does so much for your defensive floor as a team, and I really love that, right? Burries gives you a dependable 2-way guard. Wilson is your upside play, explosive 4 that, needs to work on his offense and add a shot, but I think overall you see signs that he can do that because the mechanics are really good there. If you're going to take away Braden Burries at there and you're going to move up to number 11 for another player, you may have to move up for Cameron Carr. I got a whole segment on the show to end on Cameron Carr, but maybe that, or you can also say maybe Yaxel Lindenberg for somebody who want another high floor player. I know he's a little bit on the older side, but you add the player that was the second best overall player in college basketball last year, wouldn't be mad at that either. So those are some other, trade up scenarios at number 15, not worried about trading up from number 4. And then the last scenario in this that could happen is the steals, right? And I will say this, and I know not everybody's going to agree with me. Cam Boozer is a steal at number 4. You look at everything that he does, all the different ways he impacts with passing, rebounding, defense, scoring, 3-point shooting, right? When you have a player that can affect the game in that many areas, listen, I said it before, and I had the video where I said, let's not act like Cam Boozer is just some consolation prize. He's not. I think the athletic testing in the draft also stood out as that the athleticism may not be as big of a concern as me and some other people made it out to be. But you look at a player that averaged 22.5 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.4 steals per game, shot 56% from the field and 39% from 3. That is a legitimate volume score that also gives effort on the defensive side of the ball. Now, his defense, I don't know if it's ever going to be as impactful in the NBA as it was in college, as he's going to be facing more athletic players consistently, but I'd be willing to bet on it and see it, right? And then the other one at number 15, the steal, Jaden Quattins. I look at JQ, and I say this to me, like, I get it that people are concerned about the injury, but if this guy ends up working out, man, I tell you what, this guy has the upside of a modern, rim running, shot blocking, rim protecting big. Now, the betting on the knee aspect of that is a little bit concerning, and I'm not going to act like it's not, right? It is definitely concerning there. But I think that if Jaden works out, you're going to see somebody that people are going to look back and say, how wasn't he a top 10 pick? If the injury stuff is truly behind him, you will literally hear those conversations about him as soon as his rookie year. Now, we got to see. He's already not 100% right now, so that's another concern that adds into this spot as well. But I'd be willing to bet on that upside, man. I'm telling y'all, I really like Jaden. I hear people say, let's stay away from him completely. I don't think you can go into that with that. Now, I mean, Christian Nick Jr. is another player that I love, as a big that can go down in that area as well. And I love him. He doesn't necessarily have the injury concerns also. So that's another thing that you're looking at there. But overall, those are the scenarios. Let me know how you guys feel about each of those scenarios and who would you take at either one of those spots. But lastly, the guy that I said I was going to break out and talk about specifically, and that's Cameron Carr. Cameron Carr has probably done the most for himself compared to anybody in the draft combine at upping the way that he is viewed in this, right? This is a guy that for a large part of this time period was looked at as at the end of the first round, and some even initially had him going in the second round. You look at what he did with a 7'1" wingspan, a 42-inch max vertical. He shot extremely well. He has the potential to turn into a 3-level scorer as well. You shut down the draft combine in the scrimmages as well. Like all of that stuff, it is possible now he goes into the lottery. It's absolutely possible with that. But I tell you what, if Cameron Carr is there at number 15, the first pick outside the lottery, I don't think that you can pass up on Cameron Carr, regardless of whatever position that you pick. The slap is there, right? Which you look for when it comes down to that. He does have a upside of a scorer as well. He is a true two-way player. And I would not be surprised if Cam Carr turns into 18, 19 point per game scorer at the NBA, right? I think the upside that he has as a 3-level scorer, he can finish around the rim, he can shoot the 3, the mid-range game, he can create separation, all that type of stuff. Cameron Carr has gone from a late first round option to a legitimate top 10 to 12 possibility there, depending on how teams go. Right now, I can still see him being there at number 15, but at the end of the day, I think that it comes down to this for the Bulls. If he's there, can you really afford to pass up on him? Can you afford, if regardless of what your center need is, if Cameron Carr is there at number 15, can you look at yourself and say, we can afford to pass up on the upside of this? Because I tell you what, if you take him at number 15, let's say he just ends up being a 3-and-D role player in the NBA. Nobody's going to look at that and say, oh, you're stupid for drafting. Nobody's going to look at that. It's so much upside with Cameron Carr that I think you have to be there. Now, most of the mocks have the Bulls has Cameron Carr going to the Bulls at number 15. I think the last time I checked, literally every mock has him going to the Bulls at 15. But that's also why it probably won't happen, right? Like, that's just the way that things work for the Bulls. But we'll end up seeing what happens in this one. But I think overall to ask your question on what Bryson Graham, I think what he has to prioritize in this draft is just get the right guys. Number 4 is pretty straightforward, right? You're gonna take who falls. I think that's there. At number 15, that's where stuff starts getting a little bit more wide open. That's where you have opportunity and chances to trade up, all those type of things. We'll see what's going to happen in that. Do not chase names over fit. Do not chase names over best player available. And I don't think that Bryson Graham will do that, but we're going to end up seeing what happens. This offseason is not about one move. It's not even about just the draft. It's about how the combination of what the picks that you have in the draft and what you can do in free agency as well, how that all pairs together to get the Bulls where they need to go. And let's hope that Bryson Graham is the guy to get that done, because AK missed those opportunities more than he ever hit on them. And that's part of the reason why we're here as a team and as a franchise. So let's see what Bryson Graham can do. Again, my faith is in Bryson Graham until he proves and shows otherwise that it shouldn't be. And we'll see what's going to happen in regards to that overall. But I think this, right? When you see the names that are entering the coaching search, I wouldn't be surprised if you see more names enter it. When you look at the draft, it comes down to so many variables, some that are in your control, some that are completely out of your control. You just have to read and be prepared for it. And that's what it makes the best drafters, is people who are prepared for how the draft and the board can change as it goes on, because there's going to be also a trade probably in that top 10 that completely throws off what many people thought they had going on in the draft board. Bryson Graham has to stay flexible. He has to stay ready. And if he does those things, the Bulls can come out of this NBA draft in a much better place than where they've been in. At least I hope that that's going to be the case. Let's see what this front office is really about. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following, or hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell if you never want to miss an episode or an upload. You guys can follow us at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number 1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.